I mentioned Gary Wilks. Gary Wilks is here from TDEM. Stand by. Come on out. Come on out. So Gary spent 10 years as a firefighter in Travis County. He spent 35 years in the city of Austin in a variety of roles, including wireless services division. He spent 3 years at the city of San Antonio, as a senior IT manager. And now he serves as the division chief for communications technology at Texas Division of Emergency Management, or TDEM. And Gary, you want to take it away?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. All right. And we have a couple of mics there.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'll stand up here for now. For the panel up here, we've got some really good experts. I've had the opportunity to meet some of these folks remotely. First time on some of them I'm seeing in person. But from a round table, we have some slides. Do we know what order those slides came in? I'm gonna look over there.
Yes, the FEMA ones first from Wilson, and then Mount Moyer.
Okay. We just have two slide groups.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Who was the first one? I apologize.
Craig Wilson.
Chris Wilson. So we'll let you go first then, because you're the first in the slide deck. And what we'll do, rather than go through a whole panel introduction, I'll just let y'all introduce yourselves as you come up, if that's okay. And we'll go from there. So this is for those that may not be aware, Texas is TDEM, Mike Grubb, who I work with, Chief Grubb. We are kind of the agency that manages the PIV-I or unification verification for Texas. And we will do the credentialing for the different groups. Mike's got a group that manages that and goes out to different events. Coming up later this month is the TDEM conference up in Fort Worth. We'll have a session set up there for folks who may not have their identified credentials, look like this. And I believe there's a little bit of a prerequisite, and we'll talk about that as when Mike gets to it. But with that, I'll turn it over and we'll start the presentation.
Yes.
There you go.
Good afternoon, morning, lunch, whatever it is, everybody. My name is Craig Wilson, and I am the ICAM director for FEMA. And we're here to talk to you about what we're doing in FEMA and how it ties into what you're doing this time. So the first thing is I talk about 6 P's in success. You have to have policy, you have to have process, you have to have people. You have to have problem services, you have to have practice, and then you have to have performance metrics. So for policy for FEMA, we have our administrators' annual planning guidance. And in our annual planning guidance, it talked about provide our SLTT partners with the tools and resources needed to support a ready nation. And on that, I'm talking about what I call our SLTT PIV-I digital identity resilience. It's a big support initiative to promote digital identity that enables emergency management interoperability, accountability, and resiliency. And as we look at, we tie into our strategic plan, the FEMA strategic plan, it ties into goal 3 and objective 3.2 to make sure that we possess IT infrastructure and tools to support data and information sharing. Next slide, please. So we have process. So in process, what we did was back in 2017, we had 19 jurisdictions, 19 SLTT cross-country jurisdictions who said, hey, listen, we will work with you on your beta test. What we did was we bought equipment. We bought identity issues equipment, we bought cards. And we give training to our constituents to issue cards in accordance with the federal common policy. So those are 19 jurisdictions that we did. And we integrated those cards into 9 applications to show we can achieve cross-agency, cross-border interoperability. And so as a result of that, we were successful in demonstrating that. Next slide. And here we are today, so we stand as we migrate into our modernization solution. Those that are in blue are coming into FEMA right now, to include state of Texas. Texas, TDEM was one of the first out of the blocks to say, hey, I want to do this, we're going to do this. I've worked with DIBKIT for a long time. And now the ID card is now the Texas Department of Emergency Management ID card, as you saw here, and you see some people walking around here with that. Having said that, if you're green, you have PIV-I, and you're ready to come into FEMA as we go into our next phase, which is our modernization solution to implement a SaaS solution, software as a service solution. The yellow and orange, they were coming to the train station, and we'll get them on the next go round. Next slide, please. So the key to this is this credential. This is the thing that's going to connect the federal, the state, the local, the tribal, the territorial with an identity credential. Because you heard earlier, who is coming into your organization? How are you getting access? And so as we heard earlier, there's a process in this. And on the process, once you complete the process for your identity proving for suitability, on this chip, you have 2 biometrics tied to you. You have a PIN that you program on this chip, and you have 4 certificates on this chip, the PKI, Federal Common Policy processes. And you have a digital signature certificate on this chip, encryption, authentication, and you have a bit of authentication that binds you, the card owner, to the card. Next slide. So talk about practice. We have put this in place across the nation, and we have 2 examples of practice. We have the Pontiac Tribe in Arizona. We have the City of San Antonio here in Texas. And both have incorporated this. Pontiac Tribe, as they had a ransomware attack, they got the data breached. They had someone come in and do a cybersecurity exam of what their architecture would think. They said, hey, if we had this PIV-I credential implemented, would we have gotten breached? And the answer was no, you would not have. So the chief said, tribal chairman said, this PIV-I card is now the tribal ID card. And so they employed about 900 and so smart cards a day. They've incorporated the card into their police cruisers, into their doctors, into the hospital, into their access control systems. They have 5 different access control systems. They consolidate it all into one card. San Antonio the same way. They incorporate this card into their emergency management vehicles. They incorporate this card into their police cruisers. They incorporate this card into the physical access and logical access systems. And they also use this card to get into Joint Base San Antonio, which is huge. You got a city coming into a DoD facility with this card. So that shows that you have interoperability there. And this is at the end of the day to achieve equitable outcomes for those we serve. Next slide, please. So performance metrics, at the end of the day, this is where we're going with our processes and our solution. We want to achieve total interoperability across the nation with all of our stakeholders, state, local, tribal, and territorial, full stop. Next slide, please. My last slide is, so what are the benefits of a PIV-I? And it gives you the ability to have an employee identity credential, consolidate use for access control to your physical, your logical access. So it's an investment strategy. It's not about the card, but it's about the use of the card. And you can change your door locks to get rid of your proprietary solutions. You can buy laptops that have the card slots in the side and upgrade your hardware. You can invest in applications that give you single sign-on capability. The same card, the same PIN will get you to a FEMA facility, get you to the FEMA network, get you a FEMA application, get you to the City of San Antonio hospitals, area hospitals, and it gets you into whatever you got to get into if you have trustworthiness. So I always think about, we talk about access control. First of all, who are you? Second of all, who is sponsoring you for access into whatever? The third thing is, are you trustworthy or not? You have suitability. The fourth thing is, what is it you're trying to access? And the last thing is, this is the one piece that everybody forgets. How long do you need access for? Your cradle to grave access management. Everybody let you in, but you're in, and you're in, who let you out? Do you need to be in all this time? I don't think so. So you have the cradle to grave management for access. And that's my presentation. I'll turn it over to whoever's next. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Very good coverage on that. Who's the next slide?
So I also tweeted from Matt, but I'm not sure if he was going to go last or.
Yes, it was all coordinated session. I think probably best if I cover my.
You want to go
last? So
Okay.
handle the Grubb's next.
All right, we'll go next down the line. Go ahead and introduce yourself too, if you would.
Thanks, Gary. My name is Sam Dibrell. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Foundation for Trust Identity. We're a nonprofit Texas corporation that is advocating for adoptions of smart card credentials, specifically PIV-I nationwide. We support TDEM and FEMA in those efforts as well. If nothing else from today, what I want you to focus on and take away is that all of the panels that you've seen, all the demonstrations you've seen are centered on trusted identity. If you do not have faith or confidence, high confidence, the person receiving that data, making those transmissions, publishing that information, is who they are supposed to be and qualified to make those operations, all is lost. So the nation currently under tremendous cyber security pressure, cyber attacks, compromises almost on a daily basis from impersonation. I can say that. It's starting to get hungry, I guess. If we can eliminate that, we also eliminate identity theft and secure all of our networks from that standpoint. PIV-I, based on the federal PIVs 201 standard and the federal PIV card, facilitates that for state, local, tribal, and territorial stakeholders and has cross-platform adaptability so that we are taking that identity component of ICAM, making it secure, making it high availability as well as high assurance, allowing the rest of credential access management to be brought into play and enable your application for those security features. I know we are in front of you at lunch, so I'm going to pass this along to Ike and we'll go from there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sam.
My name is Mike Grubb. I'm Section Chief, Special Projects at the Texas Division of Emergency Management. One of those special projects is access control, responder enrollment, that kind of thing. I think Gary called me an expert. The previous presentation I got lost real quick. I'm not really an expert on the tech stuff. I'm an expert on the process implementation. I've got Sam here, who's our expert. He's our vendor. So when he's talking about the digital identities behind the cards, I think my place here is to talk more about what TDEM is using this card for. Texas Government Code 418 charges TDEM with a access control and reentry plan into a disaster area. So if you imagine like the island of Galveston Island gets smashed out by a huge hurricane, just completely destroyed. The whole island is evacuated. Hurricane passes through, causes all kinds of damage. First responders are the first ones back in. How do we know they're first responders is the question that TDEM has been charged with answering. Who are the first ones who can actually come back in? So if you've heard Chief Kidd, the chief of TDEM, if you've heard him talk in any of our trade shows or our conferences dealing with emergency management, the cyber threats and the next threat is at the top of his mind, but also this access control. How do we know that people coming in are qualified to come in? The PIV-I card is the chosen vehicle for this credentialing program that TDEM has started, or that we've been charged with. The card, as Sam was saying, it has a very, very high, assurance rate. That this person sitting in front of me is who he says he is. He's got all kinds of data in the card backing him up. So when you show up at a site, at a control point manned by a DPS trooper, you say, I'm here to help. The card should answer 3 questions, and you'll have heard Chief Kidd say this before if you've heard him talk about this. Who are you? And that's that assurance of talking about. That's your identity. I'm John Doe. Who are you? What can you do? So I'm an EMT. I'm coming in. I'm law enforcement. I'm a Texas Parks and Wildlife boat driver. I'm supposed to be here. And that third question, why are you here? Well, I've been deployed. My time started an hour ago when I got the call. I'm here now, and the clock is ticking for FEMA reimbursement purposes. For tracking accountability in and out of that disaster site. The actual digital identity behind the card is the most secure assurance that we're going to get that you're who you're supposed to be, you're there for a reason, and that we know how long you've been there and whether or not you got back out. So I have.
Thank you, Mike.
Hello, my name is John Frisbee. I'm with the Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology. I'm the lead of something called the Biometrics and the Identity Technology Center. So actually echoing one of the concepts our panelists have described, how many of you have a smartphone in here? I figured most. How many of you want something by tap to pay? Okay, so a decent chunk. So that's in a fancy thing called digital wallet. When I say digital wallet, what I mean is just tap. I'd say sort of building on conceptually what's been talked about with PIV-I, there's a movement where identity is following payments. And things that were previously, we had separate tokens for, separate cryptographic credentials have actually been built in the hardware itself. So right now, every laptop, every tablet, every smartphone, with the exception of a rare few, can have what are called passkeys built in. So they can themselves can be cryptographic identifiers. The reason I mention this is I'm here today to talk about a concept called first responder digital badge. So conceptually, it's very similar to PIV-I. Just the difference is the silicon that it sits in is actually in the phone, or in laptop, or in browser. It's in the device that people already have. There is the investment here that's already happened is Europe has invested 90 million euros. There's 250 plus organizations. They passed a law last week that said in the next 4 years, every member state must have digital first EIDs. So you can use this for health records, you can use this for educational diplomas, you can use it for all sorts of credentials. You have everything paper going digital. So there's been a wave of investment. In the US, 24 states, including Texas, are either live or in the process of doing interoperable or mobile driver's license. You put your driver's license in your phone, even tests out, you can actually go to DFW, and TSA will accept those for certain checkpoints. But we're at the federal level where DHS and NIST are working for 40 plus private public sector organizations, from banks to healthcare to states to international organizations, for how do you use digital credentials to then actually use online. So you do something like open bank account, access to government service, really kind of work the inside of how do you do this with digital credentials. The FAA is put a proposal to the International Civil Aviation Organization that all pilot licenses, including drones, will be based on mobile document, which is a format that's the same thing that driver licenses are using. And 2 weeks ago, Google and Apple, who sometimes don't like each other and don't play well together, demonstrated a cross-device, cross-browser, where you could use a touch credential of your driver's license on an iPhone to Chrome, or you could use from an Android device to Safari to prove you're you on the internet. Why am I here talking today? Well, there's been a wave of investment where it's taken, I think, 8 years to go from standard to working, until 2 weeks ago to actually get the major vendors sort of working together. I mentioned this is, so S&T has a phase 2 small business innovation research. In English, what that means is 2 companies are going to be working for the next 2 years or so. They've already done proof of concept. I'm saying you can take a cross-registered field in an organization like A&M. If A&M has a program that says you can become a firefighter, and we as an education institution will certify that you are a firefighter according to some standard, that can then go into a smart resume, or then someone can hire to say, I need firefighters to hire you. And then you can go into a digital credential that'll be on your phone to prove you're you, to prove the building qualifications for NIMS and machine readable language, and it can be used for access authorization. The reason I'm here is the hope is at the end of those 1 to 2 years, the technology providers have done this in a way that actually meets the needs of first responders. Phase 1 had 6 first responders from SWAT to fire to Chicago PD and some others advising on it. So I'm here today that if you all have questions or would like to provide feedback, or this is something that you would like to use in your 2, it'll be available for non-competitive purchasing on government vehicles for phase 3. But we really just, it's echoing everything with PIV-I. It comes down to the provisioning of a digital credential tends to be simpler and cheaper than provisioning a physical card. So that was sort of looking ahead to complement what's already being done with PIV and PIV-I. Thank you so much for your time.
We're going to just clarify those 2, the application you're talking about, what Sam and Mike talked about, they're compatible, just a different platform of present.
Yes, so this would be, you could provision it to an Apple, Google, statement wallet, anything, and how it communicates. This is really focused on the credentialing. It's all open standards based from ISO, World Wide Web Consortium. So it is deliberately very standards based and interoperable. And it can work with, like NIST was involved some of the earlier, because eventually the goal is to, with this project we're doing in cooperation with NIST, is work out for verifiable credentials and mobile driver's license. How does it feed into actually work with Federal Bridge for the budget certificates? So there's been a lot of other work for the sake of being between lunch and this panel. I don't want to get into, but there's a lot going into with the idea is it's not proprietary, it is open, it is standards-based, and not just standards-based, but it's being adopted by the hardware and software providers that manufacture all the laptops, OSs, and others worldwide.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I'm on the distinction of being the last person to talk before lunch, so it's my duty to keep it short. Those of you who have heard me talk about my work in federal ICAM and trust, you know that I can probably cover all that very well. That's a town to 5 minutes. Might not be easy to do, but I'll do my best. So I'm using Moyer, I'm a research scientist at ITEC Research Institute, GTRI. GTRI is a nonprofit applied research division of Georgia Tech, large research university in Atlanta. Over 25 years, probably over 30 years, research part division at GTRI has been involved in problems related to trusted information sharing within the public safety community. I've been working in this area since 2005, so just about 19 years, 20 years now. And my primary focus during that time has really been on ICAM and trust. So, jump ahead down. So I'm going to cover two things, and one more time. It's an animated slide. So what I want to do is follow around what everyone's just talking about. Getting into some of the details about credentialing and specific types of credentials with PIV-I and other optional digital credentials. I'm going to zoom out and talk about kind of the big picture of what else is there to public safety, and because it's been in this for a long time. I think if we just take away, oh, it's all about credentials. No, it's not. There's a lot more to it. There's what can we do once we have credentials, and what do we need to do to make all that possible? There's quite a lot of detail there that I've been involved in. So I'm going to keep this to 5 takeaways. Something that may be obvious to some of you, depending on what you already know about this area, but I wanted to just kind of get some very big picture perspective. So, go ahead and jump to the first one. So I think this has been covered probably today, but ICAM is fully foundational in public safety, information sharing, and collaboration. What I mean by that is a critical enabling technology for so much else that the community needs to accomplish. And so having ICAM in place and having it implemented properly is just critical. So when you say implement properly, it's stuff that responds. So what I mean to implement it properly, we need to think about ICAM from a strategic perspective. We've seen this a lot now. ICAM is people talk about strategically as opposed to tactically. I think it's attempting to employ solutions that are to solve a specific tactical problem, because it's often simpler to think about things tactically. Just get something out that satisfies the minimum requirements. What we need to do is think about the long term. So we need to think strategically about it. And on that topic, I want to just highlight. So there's one. I want to highlight the breadth of. Can't go into detail because this really would take hours to talk. But there's been close to 20 years just that I've been involved with of strategic research and development on public safety in various areas in which we try to push in this world. So a lot of sponsorship. These are the sponsors that sponsor my work. So DOJ, DHS, NIST, Director of National Intelligence, the White House. That's just sponsors of my work over the last 20 years in just this area. We also work identity and trust in other areas of the public safety. And so some of the programs listed here that we've been involved with. Again, some of you know these acronyms, these things, maybe some of you don't, but don't have a lot of time to get into detail. But a lot of this is really critically important. GPIP program, Global Federated Identity and Privilege Management. We as a national identity assurance federation, so once we all have credentials, whether it's PIV-I card or something else, can we federate into systems that are operated by other agencies and other stakeholders and partners? So we have federation in which we can enable that. Attributes, we have multiple efforts that have gone on to define standard attributes, because identity is not enough. We need to know not just who you are, but what are the facts that we know about you, so that I can make an access control decision when you come into a system. So we can use single sign-on to get you into the system, or we can use whatever technology there is when we get there. What do we know about you? So we need to define those attributes, and then we find sure that the relying parties, those who need the information, they're what they're looking for, they know exactly what it is. Trust mark framework has to do with, the trustworthiness of the information that's being shared, conveyed as attributes and other aspects. We all know, I don't think it goes without saying that if you're not going to have an information sharing or collaboration with a partner agency that you don't have a trusted relationship with. But that's not the thing, it's trust and context dependent in many cases, it means something different depending on what you're trying to accomplish. It is a life cycle process that needs to be managed over time. So those are not two. So my really over the last 10, 12 years has thought really, really deeply about that, develop some technologies that are I innovated in that space. So there's a lot going on there. Let's go to the next one. I think I probably was looking at this in case it's not obvious. Had a lot of discussion about PIV-I cards. PIV-I is excellent technology, very, very high insurance. It's not the only game in town, and I don't think it's realistic to assume that everybody in public safety will converge on one technology. So instead of building solutions that are tailored to one technology, we need to build solutions that are interoperable regardless of what technology you bring to the table. And they're all understand what the technologies are. So for example, Wilks does define an entire digital authentication framework, digital identity framework that defines various levels of assurance levels in alcohol. And so PIV-I qualifies for the highest levels of assurance for identity proofing and credentialing, but there are lower assurance credentials too, and those are perfectly acceptable in some use cases. So there are always going to be authentication uses. And then last one, please. And I've already kind of covered this in that detail, I think in number 3, but many of the most challenging aspects of ICAM really lie beyond the scope of just what credential are used. So I mentioned federation. Federation is really taking the same sign-on approach. Single sign-on is very, very prevalent today within enterprises, but what if you want to do single sign-on across enterprise boundaries? You now have opened up lots of questions about trustworthiness and what exactly is going on in this organization. Can we trust them? What about the organization we're going to? Can we trust them? Can they trust us? ABAC is attribute-based access control. I mentioned attributes. We've done a lot of defining attributes. Attribute assurance has more to do with when the attributes are required. Somebody sends me a user through a single sign-on session, and there are some attributes attached to it. How can I trust those attributes? We want to define very clearly what they are. For example, one of the attributes that we spend a lot of time working on is called a sworn law enforcement officer indicator. So it's like a blended attribute. It comes in as true or false. But what exactly does it mean if someone is marked as a sworn law enforcement officer? Well, this is where we have that definition. That's 18 months in a committee with the GFR program to define back in about 2007, 2008. So we don't know exactly what it means, but if somebody sends a payload with a single sign-on, somebody comes into the system, and they make a decision, some resources available to small law enforcement users, and that value is marked as true. I need to trust who that assertion came from. Who did send that information? How do I know that they got it right? What do I know about what they're doing in the environment perspectives, security policy? Are they managing? Did that actually come from them? So, for example, FTI, they're issue with the credentials, but they're not the employer of law enforcement officers. So if FTI is the system sending me a user after authentication, how do I know where they got that information if I can trust it? So that's a very, very deep topic. And I mentioned trust management will really expand on that topic there. So we need to know in a fair amount of depth. Well, I say we need to know what we need to decide what exactly trustworthiness means in various use cases, and then we need to actually implement it so that we have trustworthiness when we need it and put it in place. And all this stuff, as you can imagine, is very, very foundational. And one of the respect to trust management, previous panel talked about the information sharing framework. We talked about identity protection and federation. We have the scope of the information sharing framework. And I think trust management is foundational even below the level of ICAM. So trust management exists no matter what the information sharing use case is, whether we're talking about users or talking about the system agency behind the scene. So some of these things are very, very foundational. We need to think about them strategically and implement them properly. And if we do, what we get, the value that we get out of it is a strategically developed platform that can be built upon, and we get all sorts of amazing use cases that can be built and very, very quickly. So there's a ton of benefits to doing things right, but we have to think carefully about what that means. That's great.
All right, thank you, very good information. We got about 5 minutes left before your lunch boxes are in your hand. Anybody have any questions for this panel? Yes, sir.
Yeah, very ITEC. So I think Matt's on something where one size can't fit all. I think there's advantages to the badge and there's advantages to the digital. And as we all know, in a disaster situation, power is not reliable, things like that. So it's great to have the digital. But I tell you what, when you're looking across a bunch of people, a badge flash is worth a lot. So I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's multiple and not.
Anybody else have any questions?
Thanks for your talk, and I'm happy to hear about the digital badge. I work with Next Generation Priority Services in my life, and then I also work with the Air Force, specifically enabling mobile classified usage. And the biggest thing I hear is a stupid card is the biggest annoyance because they are all carrying around Apple phones, so you can't connect the card to the phone. And so instead of a tablet, they love using their tablets, right? And so I was trying to figure out how do I get rid of the card so that I can, pick up any device off the shelf. That's what program work with commercial solutions classified. It's for getting these devices right away onto a classified network, through pre-provisioning. But one of the problems that we're having, that I was thinking through with your question about the pre-provisioning is, especially with next generation, you can, you pick up any device and then dial and whatever. But I can't do that if I needed it pre-provisioned for somebody else, and I don't have my credentials on this, and I don't know how to get it down. So I'm just going to get your thoughts about stuff. That makes sense.
So there's a sweet spot in the middle. From a cybersecurity standpoint, anything that's online is an attack surface. Anything that's offline, that's a little bit more security from that standpoint. It has to go in the physical realm, somebody has to assault you, hold you hostage to make you do actions with your identity. PIV does have PIV-I, specifically for the federal government derived credential, which gives you a certificate that is based on your mobile application. PIV-I does not have guidance for that from the federal policy authority yet. I think the work that DHS S&T is doing is a perfect complement to what is going on in PIV. So melding the two of those together, I think, is a path forward. In addition, there's a host of hardware that's had various successes, sleds for phones or Bluetooth applications. NSA doesn't necessarily like Bluetooth, so it goes in another direction. But there are mannerisms to get there, but they are not convenient. And I just implore you to say, let's trade security for convenience in some of these locations so that we're not compromising ourselves to foreign entities or attack vectors.
I have a slightly different take, which the challenge anymore, I don't know if cyber or physical distinction always is what it means. You can cryptographically sign up, which I really love to just put a QR code on a piece of paper. And when you cryptographically valid, that will be. So the nice thing is that you have certificate authorities that can issue stuff, they can issue physical things, they can issue digital things. There isn't necessarily a meaningful divide between them. I think what's interesting about it is like, I can't use my third party. They're required to accept it, but the issue is you actually can't look up PIV because PIV is not on the card, and actually you can't insert the chip because the readers are not authorized to do it, so you can't put the pin. So you actually have to use a deprecated inspection method visual, or soon to be deprecated at federal cases. So one of the things that my mind goes to first is like verifier infrastructure. If I have a really securely issued thing with password, but you don't read the chip and you just look at the book, the value of that verification event has dramatically decreased. Because if someone excises the photo and puts it, as you have cases where like the photo in the book will not match the photo on the chip. So the ability and to easily and seamlessly verify strongly can be as important as the strength of the credential itself. Where you get things like some of the cards with chips on them, the truckers have them because they just beat things up. The chip will break, the antenna will physically break. So you can't use a chip if the chip is busted. And if someone wants to like get through it, they'll be like, well, if it's brought through, I'm gonna bust the chip and just be like, the stupid thing broke. So what I think where phone is interesting is you actually look at like What people they may crack their screen, but people tend to protect their phone a lot because it's a valuable personal device. So not to say it can't, of course, phones are very susceptible to breakage, but generally people seem to protect them more than they do most other things because they own it. And if you break it, you're gonna buy a new one. So it's not that it's more stronger than necessarily a card, but because if your employer pays for you to replace it, people tend to break them less or take more care of them. So it's been an interesting psychological observation, like, and you can use any of the 12 sensors on phones, so Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, where NFC, QR code read, there's like 5 or 6 ways approximately to communicate with the device. Then you have all the online methods. So phones are, computers that we can talk on. They can do like many different things. So that's kind of where the digital mobile first is where the focus was. Over.
Got a question back here.
And I apologize if y'all may have addressed this earlier, I had to step out earlier, but my question is, are we able or are y'all looking into at all having credentials not associated with a person, but associated with a device? And I ask because our agency has a bunch of cash devices and National Guards, soldiers, this isn't what they do every single day. They go to their day jobs and then when they're called upon, they get activated and then we give them a bunch of communication packages that we manage and on an as-needed basis, ad hoc. But a lot of the other systems that our state partners use and that we would like for them to have access to so we can track them or collaborate or do whatever we need to between the service member or the DPS trooper. They don't have those credentials because they don't do it every single day. But if the credentials could somehow be on the device and that is a trusted device of the agency and we give them that device that has the credentials already built in, is that something that y'all have been looking into or has that been discussed at all?
The PIV-I credentials and PIV credentials are connected through Federal Common Policy CA, a PKI certificate of authority server. And that then changed down to the Federal Bridge. Federal Bridge policy does allow for device certificates.
Not associated to a person.
I'm sorry?
Not associated to the individual.
Correct. It's associated with the hardware itself. And there's another set of policies that goes along with how that device is identified and what Matt would say that the back-end checks to make sure that everything is appropriate for that device to receive a certificate that asserts that it is part of the trust event. As far as a role-based PIV-I, there is exceptions for that in PIV, but we typically stay with PIV-I, the one associated with the identity.
So there's no reason why you can't issue bad faith for naming concepts to make it simple. Because the concept you're describing is organizational credentialing. How do I act on behalf of people who don't necessarily need as a human? If that's possible, you also get to something where you can have a credential issue to a person, but what do you disclose? Selective disclosure. So you just say this was signed by an employee of, or signed on behalf of this organization, you disclose those things. So there's ways, both credential issuance, but also selectively disclosing what's out or what it's being used for, that there's ways to sort of manage this. Actually, if you're interested in playing with DoD's, actually, DMDC is working, Defense Manpower Data Center is working on family cards based for digital credentials for base access and others. So if you want to like talk to DMDC about how they're doing it and like within DoD, there might be ways you could look forward and see what they're doing and maybe cheaply or freely be able to try something out.
Any additional questions? I think that rounds up. Thank you all very much.
Okay, the long-awaited lunch is almost here. Hang on. Okay, a couple things. Again, during lunch, we're going to have an interactive TAC discussion, demo, whatever. You can ask all your questions and we'll run through. We finally got the IT folks here, so we should be able to get the video stuff working.